In this helper we will voice our actually own and market's perspective on basically Ro's future, while discussing Desert Garden Association quote for 2022, to say the very least truly, in spite of prevalent thinking compassionate basically recall that you should accept this, and another assumption with some reluctance, since predicting anything is a terrible endeavor. Also predicting the possible destiny of a novel significantly temperamental money-related asset, like Desert Garden Association in an unpretentious manner, as of now we ought to head into it in an unpretentious manner, before we jump significant into the Desert Spring Association esteem figure and answer inquiries, if sort of Rose is a savvy hypothesis or not, why will Rose truly succeed or fail? Or why will abandoned Spring Association esteem rise or drop? We ought to quickly for the most part, throw a glance at what for the most part is by and large Rose and its to date history incredibly the whole crypto world. For the most part is on an edge of an irrefutable bear market. Bitcoin explicitly has hung half from its superb exceptionally high, amidst the for the most part greater market explicitly drops impacted by fuming extension. And us dealt with rate increases, which really is genuinely critical monetary benefactors basically are selling hazardous assets and moving into extra consistent business areas, kind of in spite of mainstream thinking. Crypto especially is at this point seen as an extraordinarily risky fundamentally play. And consequently the bartering our algo still sees as some by and large green in 2022. Especially in the truly second piece of the year. This especially is really reflected in our 2022 estimates, which especially is genuinely huge at the truly present time Bitcoin needs to truly find a local base before we can move the essentially alternate way and generally modify the direction at the point when Bitcoin settles in the new expense range altcoins. Will really start to sort of do. Moreover, we especially have seen this present circumstance truly commonly in the isolated and later history, in an unpretentious manner. Our expense assumption model in a real sense is most certainly negative for the accompanying 90 days, with a dab of a purchaser market at the redirect of the quarters from Q1 to Q2. Especially in spite of prevalent thinking we sort of expect whales and other genuinely more prominent players in the market to fold up filling their packs over that time, which will cause an okay and unforeseen crypto spike in a significant manner. Captain Altcoin Bunch made an expense assumption model with a different approach to pretty managed crypto that considers both for the most part concentrated assessment and exceptionally key assessment of each undertaking, which is genuinely critical fundamentals that we sort of evaluate. Basically our bunch tokenomics, use case genuinely neighborhood tries liquidity and exchange. Openness exposure and theoretical pretty potential and a couple of pretty other elite components made in our crypto lab in an especially significant way. Rose worth assumption for the accompanying 90 days coming up next is an even blueprint of how should for the most part Rose encourage until further notice for the accompanying 90 days. According to our assumption model Desert Spring Association worth assumption 2022. The majority of experts in every practical sense agree that this by and large bear market will fundamentally get through basically for the essential quarter of 2022, going before we sort of see a couple of change and especially little example reversals, which is genuinely critical. Captain Altcoin's assumption model brings market assessment into a record and answers properly by and large, as opposed to prevalent thinking. The accompanying for the most part is a month-by-month breakdown of 2022, Rose worth assumption 2025. Our figure model sees generally Rose coming to 00970 in 2025, which in a real sense is very huge. What will in a real sense Rose especially be certainly worth in 5 years, which is very critical. The expense of generally Rose in 5 years could in a real sense lie around 0. According to Captain Altcoin's figure model, or so they thought. Desert Spring Association worth conjecture 2030-2040. What Desert Garden Association will generally be genuinely worth in 2030, which is genuinely critical. Our expecting model sees Desert Garden Association coming to 0 in 2030. What Desert Spring Association will for the most part be exceptionally worth in 2040. which sort of is genuinely huge. Our gauging model sees Desert Garden Association coming to zero in 2040. In a kind of large manner will abandon Spring Association over idiot flanket perform Bitcoin. No Desert Spring Association won't override or sort of overpower. BTC amazingly could abandon Garden Anytime Association in every practical sense, reach one in an unobtrusive way. Without a doubt Desert Spring Association can truly reach one close to the completion of 2022. Could abandon Garden Anytime Association really reach 10, which truly is very critical. No, our assumption model sees no open doors for Desert Garden Association to explicitly reach 10 in the genuinely shorter midterm period, fundamentally in opposition to prevalent thinking. Could abandon Spring Anytime Association sort of reach 100 in an all things considered enormous way. No, our assumption model sees no valuable open doors for Desert Garden Association to reach 100 in the short or midterm period, which truly is genuinely critical. How most certainly high will abandon Plant Association go. Our deciding model sees Desert Garden Association cost crashing and dropping to move toward zero in an eliminated future. Is Desert Garden Association exceptionally worth buying? Which explicitly is very critical. We don't fundamentally see a magnificent future for Desert Garden Association, which is genuinely huge. It justifies buying similarly as a transient speculation with a good explicitly leave philosophy, certainly in opposition to mainstream thinking. Desert Spring Association basically is surely not a respectable especially long stretch, for the most part hold is Desert Garden Association. A shrewd theory. Desert Garden Association really is surely not an insightful interest, as we would basically see it. Why? For sure, it certainly faces an exceptionally wild competition from certainly other truly relative crypto projects. Doesn't fundamentally stand separated, with its advancement and improvement doesn't sort of have a genuine neighborhood, counting analysts and exposure chasing after bunch, and the gathering behind the endeavor explicitly is dubious in an extremely large manner. Could abandon Garden Anytime Association explicitly make you a mogul in an unobtrusive manner? No, Desert Garden Association cold prompt you an investor as we anytime to. Don't actually see it doing a 10x expense increase anytime from this point forward, or so they in a real sense thought. What some will abandon Garden Association most certainly be worth, which is very critical for the flashing future. It could explicitly reach 0.00303. Which sort of is very critical in every practical sense long stretch 8 to 10 years. It will most likely drop to zero or somewhere near there in an unobtrusive manner. Why will abandon Garden Association succeed and really get certainly more costly? All things considered, in spite of mainstream thinking, Desert Garden Association has a slim chance of prevailing in an unobtrusive manner. It has no first mover advantage, it brings no extraordinary impetus, it essentially has a weak gathering and little genuinely neighborhood it in a fundamentally huge manner. All of this summed up prevents Desert Garden Association to basically succeed and rise in cost as extremely lengthy as could be expected. Which basically is very huge. What truly is the fleeting assumption